Considering the unknown is a crucial part of DPP, and it begins at the lead matchup. You can safely assume Metagross to be an attacking lead, but it doesn't quite end there. It most commonly runs 4 attacks: Meteor Mash, Bullet Punch, Earthquake, and Explosion, and Aqua Berry, since it lives most Earthquakes, and this lets it take Fire Blast, and those are Metagross's only 2 real big weaknesses. This lets it go one-on-one with as many offensive Pokemon as possible. However, it can also choose to run Stealth Rock to get those up early in the game and then explode for a quick advantage. However, it has to make a concession if it wants to fit Stealth Rock into its moveset, and that concession is usually Earthquake. Now, that may seem crazy, because Earthquake hits Steel types. However, check this out. If it drops Meteor Mash or Bullet Punch, it can no longer cleanly beat Azelf, which is a hugely important lead, and it's supposed to be a good matchup for Metagross. Not having Explosion, well, it leaves you open to being walled by stuff you really shouldn't be walled by, mostly water types. Now, not having Earthquake also makes it less likely to run Aqua Berry, as if it were to take those blows from the Fire Blasters like Heatran, Dragonite, and Infernape, it would have to choose between taking them out and likely not having Stealth Rock, because Metagross is pretty slow, or it could get Rocks and then probably not get any more usage out of something as dangerous as Metagross. It tries to maximize the positives of what each set is going for, rather than becoming an ineffectual hybrid of both. And the Stealth Rock set is more of a supporter, since it's now staying in only when it gets the good matchups rather than trying to muscle through everything. It can more safely carry Lumberry, which lets it cleave through Roserade and Machamp leads, as well as switching into Breloom mid-game. Now, this isn't an exact science, but it's an informed deduction based on metagame knowledge, which is crucial to success in DPP. As for Fakes' Uxie lead, the most common set these days in the more paralysis-focused metagame is a simple Stealth Rock T-Wave U-Turn set, which takes hits from dangerous offensive Pokemon, paralyzes things, especially since it deals with ground types pretty decently at least, or it can at least slow U-Turn out of them, in the case of Gliscor. And it sets up its really dangerous teammates like Breloom, Gyarados, Dragonite, ban Tyranitar, Machamp, Jirachi. So that's the most common set. It can also run Trick Choice Scarf or Dual Screens, but it most commonly runs the Paralysis set. So, let's get into it. Metagross is going to Trick, and right off the bat, that is a sign of how the metagame has changed to where Paralysis Uxie is the most common. Because a while ago, Uxie was quite well known for running a Trick Scarf lead itself. Now, it's not really a risky move insofar that even if it is Trick Scarf, Uxie's probably going to Trick itself, and then they just exchange Scarves, and that's good information. But the benefit is now that he's locked the Uxie into a likely Stealth Rock, or even better, Thunder Wave. This lead matchup was interesting because from Fakes' perspective, he gets to find out what kind of Metagross set it is. If it's Aqua Berry, he gets to T-Wave it right away, after he gets up Rocks, of course, in case Meta just wants to blow up immediately. Unlikely, but possible, since Uxie does not present an immediate threat. And if it is Lumberry, then he gets to burn that, and that might help his paralysis spreading team, although he would probably just stay in and T-Wave again. But the thing is that Uxie doesn't really threaten Metagross at all, so it would have to switch something else in, and that way Metagross could get some leverage with Boom. But it would be paralyzed, so if the odds were in his favor, then he could get something going. Plus, he also might have something like a substitute Rotom, which is specifically designed on Uxie teams, not just to abuse paralysis behind subs, maybe even dish it out itself, but it's also specifically for Uxie in such a lead matchup where it doesn't have quite an advantage, since, I mean, it gets a Brock safely, might get off a T-Wave, but it has to account for the possibility of one of the most common leads being what it faces off with. So, that's kind of the idea, that even if you face XYZ lead that you don't quite win against, you have to have a plan for it. So, Phil locks the Metagross, or the Uxie, into Stealth Rock, and now he has a free attack. Does he double switch? It's kind of hard to tell. Maybe he just wants to throw out some attacks and find out what kind of Uxie team he's running. But the fact he got leftovers means it's very likely going to be some sort of paralysis-focused team. It's unlikely that Trick Scarf Metagross would also run Stealth Rock. So, he switches to Heatran, and we go for a Zen Headbutt. Now, that's very uncommon on Scarf Metagross. Zen Headbutt is a decent choice on meta because it can bait in Zapdos and Rotom quite often and smack them pretty hard. But I gotta say, I've never seen it on Scarf. So, he's going to want to get out of here because no matter what Heatran set this is, it's very unlikely to be Special D, and in which case Metagross would just outrun and terrorize it with a Earthquake. And these Uxie teams generally tend to be more offense-focused. The Uxie is slow and bulky, but it's because it sets up its teammates with Rocks, Paralysis, and U-Turn. So, Fire Blast, and down goes Metagross. Now, that was a quizzical turn, because if it's Scarf Heatran, then, or, I mean, any offensive Heatran, honestly, it's just going to fire off that Fire Stab, and, I mean, Starmie spinning is definitely a concern now that Fake's Uxie is Scarf, but if it's an offensive trend, then it can just HP Grass it the turn after. That would be a welcome scenario, honestly. Starmie switching into a Fire Blast with Rocks up, that's like baiting Heatran's best case scenario. And if it's a Scarf trend, then, well, who knows? Maybe he has a Tyranitar to pursue it. Actually, that's probably pretty likely with the Uxie lead, since Banned Tyranitar loves being paired with that. In either case, throwing out a Fire Blast with Rocks up is very rarely going to steer you wrong. And even if Phil expected a double switch of some sort to keep up the momentum, I just don't think it was worth it. Since early game, even with Rocks up, I know Rocks are powerful, but you gotta be ready for whatever threat he might throw at you. His team's still pretty healthy. Anyway, he threw out Zen Headbutt, possibly expecting that kind of Rotom thing, or Zapdos, which is very possible on an Uxie team, but yeah, Metagross down pretty much. I mean, he crippled Uxie, which is nice, but Uxie's still going to be useful thanks to its bulk and U-turn. Possibly, Uxie's actually pretty fast. It's got the same base speed as Gliscor, and while its speed investment varies, like some sets even run fast with Lumberry for Roserade and Machamp, it's still going to be speedy enough with the Scarf to threaten some fast T-Wave action if it comes to that against something like a Dragonite or Suicune. Offensive, of course. Anyway, Kingdra comes in, and this is the kind of clean switch-in that not only scares Heatran to death, but also isn't that easy to take advantage of one-on-one. For example, if Fakes goes to Tyranitar expecting Starmie, then unless he's Pasho, then he really doesn't want to take this one-on-one with Kingdra because he can just get blown away by a Hydro Pump. And even if Fakes did double back to Uxie, I feel like that was more of a gut play by Phil than reading the game, which we're all guilty of sometimes, for sure. So, and this is a big stage. But yeah, I think Kingdra was definitely the move. So, he's going to get out of there, and in comes Abomasnow. So this is definitely an unconventional team with Uxie and Abomasnow. Definitely not your typical paralysis abuse team. As Phil goes for a Draco Meteor on the predicted switch. Good move. The only thing that resists both of Kingdra's stabs is Empoleon, so it's definitely not a bad idea to go for the resisted attack against something you're staring down. Like, for example, if you've got Kingdra versus a Dragonite, it's not a bad idea to go for Hydro Pump as they try to go to Jirachi, for example. But here we saw like the quintessential example. Kingdra staring down Heatran, Draco Meteor. And he hits Abomasnow really hard. Aboma's a pretty good Kingdra counter, or at least a one-time switch to scout out its set, because sometimes the fear of Kingdra is, or Kingdra's biggest weapon is the fear of which set it's going to be, since Dragon Dance and special sets are vastly different in how they get countered. But Abomasnow generally takes it once from pretty much anything, because it's getting worn down by Rocks and now Hail. Abomasnow can Leech, it can switch to a lot of things against a -2 Kingdra, and he's got Uxie for safe fodder later. He could maybe even do it twice. As in, he'll be able to switch Uxie into Kingdra twice, so he should be fine for firing off more Fire Blasts with Heatran. But so now we've got the interesting situation of, does Phil just keep dropping those Draco Bombs, or does he switch out on Protect? Protect from fakes is kind of like a, it's nice to, squeeze more lefties out of it and more hail damage onto Kingdra, but it's also potentially something that can be taken advantage of, so it's probably a better move to switch and be more safe, Cover the Obama switch in, and also cover the -2 Draco, and that shouldn't be a very hard task, because -2 Kingdra is not the scariest thing in the world, especially when you've got, Heatran and Uxie both at full health. And Uxie can U-turn to keep up momentum, or just, chip Kingdra if it stays in, so pretty much a win-win. Yeah, Abomasnow is really nasty against a water-type offense, which is quite popular since it's strong against the common stall teams. But Obama's great because Leech hits everything it's got Ice Stab for grass type, so Leech Seed is pretty spammable. And even Clefable doesn't want to deal with the powerful Wood Hammer. And Ice Shard is also a great priority, of course. Yeah, underrated Pokemon. So Fakes is really going all out on the anti-offense, since Uxie and Abomasnow are notable for their ability to handle various offensive Pokemon, which Phil is known for enjoying. So he is going to go right for the Protect, and Phil isn't going to switch out on that. I guess he's really committed to not letting Abomasnow heal up, so that could be telling of one of his later Pokemon. Because if it Leech Seeds, then that's just potentially the worst. If he had a Breloom, it'd be likely he went to it there, because Fakes is not going to go for an Ice move there. He's either protecting or switching. And even if he goes to Uxie, then, hail damage, and he can deal with the Uxie probably. It might not even have a Psychic move. And if it does, it might be tempted to go for it there because of the damage that could potentially be done if Phil banks on it not having a Psychic move. Or rather, having Zen Headbutt over Psychic. And basically, it might be worth going for Psychic there so Phil can draw that out and get some momentum back, since it would be choiced. Anyway, we see the Uxie switch now after Abomasnow got its leftovers. So, good moves from both sides. He's going to strip off a bit more than a third with Draco and Hail, but now Uxie's going to get that U-turn with the Rocks up. So, is he going to keep hammering down on Uxie? And Uxie's actually faster. So, if he does go for U-turn, then Phil is going to draw more damage on something else. And even Abomasnow at this health, 28, it's not going to want to take a -4, especially because Kingdra can then attack it again. The first one did 85, so he's probably going to be okay. But Phil is going to give him the U-turn and the switch advantage, which could get nasty. And in comes Starmie. So Phil's definitely running some sort of offense, and Fakes is running some sort of balance. I mean, the Starmie's kind of telegraphed once you see Abomasnow. It's very, very rare you see Abomasnow without Starmie. Because, I mean, you could go other spinners, but it'd just be more of a hassle. And when you're running Abomasnow, you're opening yourself up to a lot of stuff, so you want to cut the nonsense. You want to just go with the reliable, and Starmie is reliable. So he's going to just, rather than attack the Bronzong, he's going to T-Wave it just so he can spam Spin and Hail, and maybe deny it Stealth Rock so you can finish it off. Gives him more odds, basically. Surf or Hydro, whichever he has, isn't the biggest thing in the world. Anyway, Bronzong uses Rain Dance, so he's supporting the Specs Kingdra with his other teammates, rather than having Kingdra have to set up Rain itself, potentially take a hit in the process, and Life Orb damage, meaning it's weaker, and get stalled out and picked off more easily. So it's a nice strategy. The problem is, of course, that Lefty's less Bronzong is not going to keep Stealth Rock on Starmie unless there's some sort of Ghost or Pursuit support. So he might have to give up on that. And here comes Abomasnow, and he blows the Abomasnow up. I guess he was aiming for Starmie, figured he would just stay in. Whoops, sorry. Yeah, the back spray for Abomasnow is not functional. I don't know why. Anyway, so double down. Abomasnow goes down. I guess he wanted to preserve Starmie for the water assault. So that's fair. Especially since Zong was in danger of being 2KO'd from that point by the Rain Hydro, so he couldn't really get rocks and safely explode. And it's likely that he would not be able to punish Starmie for afterwards, since Starmie's pretty fast. So even if he did have something that O-code it, then it would likely get get the spin off first. And unless you're not gonna. Sorry, that was a lot of words I tried to get out of my mouth at once. But basically, you're not going to see a Scarf Tar there. With this kind of momentum based offense, you can't afford the free stuff it gives. Anyway, so He catches Abomasnow instead, and Fakes makes a great move there by sacrificing that and still having Starmie. So, Kingdra is still an auto-kill button, pretty much, at some point. He's got some good targets to aim for, and he can maybe do it. Yeah, I could see it happening twice, especially since the Starmie doesn't have, I mean, a lot of Starmie these days run Psychic, but it doesn't even have Thunderbolt, so you definitely fire off some dangerous Draco Meteors. So, Fakes goes to Uxie because it's good against most stuff. It will get the... It's bulky enough to, check out what's going on. And it's got the Scarf, too, so it can leave Phil with a parting gift. So, Phil's not getting rocks this game unless he's got a second Stealth Rocker, which is incredibly uncommon. So, now Uxie may be fast enough, depending on its investment, to outrun Latios with its newfound Scarf. It wouldn't even be that preposterous, actually, because the speed benchmarks it would need to outrun 350 at +1 are generally good benchmarks to hit regardless. And he is going to be faster, so we know it's not a Scarf Latios, and we also know Uxie has speed investment. Also means it doesn't have tremendous bulk investment, but that's pretty good actually, because that way you get more overall use out of Uxie. I mean, sure, if you really needed to tank X amount of ridiculous attacks, like CB Knight Outrage after 5 Stealth Rock hits, then whatever, fine. I don't know if it can do that. I wouldn't be surprised, though. Uxie's amazing. But its natural bulk is so good that generally its OHKOs and 2-KOs stay the same. And the speed gives it more weapons to play with. So he's going to chip that Latios, check out how much bulk it's running, if any, and he's got the safe switch in Jirachi. And that gets Thunder Wave. Now, Thunder Wave is an unappreciated option on Latios because Jirachi is the #1 switch-in, and it doesn't appreciate that at all. So, this Jirachi is seriously crippled, and that could matter in a face-off against Kingdra later on if it's spamming Hydro Pump. So, the question is what kind of Latios this is, because it doesn't have leftovers. So, Jirachi's just going to fire off an attack, and it's also got Rain Dance, so he's really going all in on that, that support Kingdra strategy, which is definitely fair because, excuse me, it's fair because, one, Kingdra is such an OHKO machine that it's something worth supporting, for sure. And the second part is that with how Kingdra and Latios both tend to bait in Tyranitar, then it's definitely an effective way of doubling up on it and then having the other guy be pretty helpless against it. Especially since Latios powering up its own Surf makes it harder to check, since Steels generally are the check to it, as well as Tyranitar itself, and without the SPDF boost and Surf being powered up, as well as versus Steels, like Heatran now just definitely dies to it, then it's not a bad weapon on its own. So some nice creativity from Phil, some nice effective creativity from Phil, since creativity on its own isn't necessarily a good thing. It can definitely fall flat on its face. Now we see Thunder Wave from the Jirachi, which is definitely an odd choice because Sub Thunder Wave used to be the standard set, and then it shifted to, then it fell out of favor because not hitting grounds, like especially Gliscor, really sucks. But people like to hit Rotoms. But then people realized, well, you can. Tama was the first guy to really bring. Well, no, I would say that he brought offensive Body Slam Jirachi into the limelight, as well as Ojama and some French players like Goten used to really like it. But because Body Slam was always a standard on specially defensive Jirachi, which was inspired by the Uber set since it wanted to hit Groudon, who was kind of a big deal, and Giratina Origin wasn't nearly as much of a threat. And that set, the specially defensive set, always ran Body Slam and OU, but then people were like, those guys I mentioned were like, hey, what if we ran Body Slam on offensive sets and Gliscor was no longer such a threat and we could hit like Swampert and stuff too. And it was more another offensive move, like it hit Starmie nicely as well. So that's why Body Slam has been reigning over DPP for some years now. So seeing Thunder Wave is really a blast from the past. Now, we don't know what kind of item this Latios has. Maybe it's Damp Rock, maybe it's Colbur Berry, which is quite likely, especially if it's running Thunder Wave Rain Dance, aka kill T-Tar in like a million different ways. So that is, and you don't want to be ruined by if Tyranitar double switches in and it's Scarf, because then you just die. So I would say Culver Berry is likely. Lumberry's nice, but maybe you can't really afford it. Anyway, Kingdra comes in, and this is, in fact, sub T-Wave Jirachi. Now, that's something that hasn't been seen for a while. So Kingdra's just going to attack it. He's got Surf, because Kingdra's most common movesets are just double stabs. Hydro and Surf, as well as Draco and Dragon Pulse. I mean, you can throw in, like, Ice Beam and, like, weird stuff like Signal Beam, but it's generally that. Anyway, so Jirachi's not getting paralyzed at all. And Kingdra paralyzes as Uxie comes in. Does not. So he takes a bite from a Surf, and that might be a difference maker against Starmie later on. Since it does 32, and it does in fact have Psychic. Anyway, Dragonite comes in, Dragon Dances. Since the Kingdra specs, this is a good opportunity for it. Does not even break half. That is a bulky Dragonite. Now, has this been actually, that might be Damp Rock Latios. I never even noticed that before. Excuse me. Let's go back. 1 to 4 turn. Yep, that was Damp Rock Latios. That's interesting. I would have thought Colbur, because you want to be safe against T-Tar, because that lets you both T-Wave and Rain Dance in its face. Yeah, that was Rain Dance, so I mean, it doesn't really make a difference because Dragonite would have DD'd anyway. And now Phil has to get out of there because he sees this bulky and it's got Roost. And he goes to Latios. And that's just going to be helplessly picked off. I mean, maybe he has to hope it's Outrage, but bulky Dragonite's running Dragon Claw, so he's not getting out of that one. Rain goes down, and in comes Scizor. So I guess that would have been a better move. So, interesting dynamic here. If it is DD Fire Punch Dragonite, well, I think DD Earthquake is more common because it's likely that Bronzong and Skarmory just stop you before you get anywhere with DD Fire Punch. So it's better to deal with them that way, rather than, I mean, Heatran can already potentially really mess up Fakes' team. I think he needs Earthquake. And being more easily stopped by Jirachi and Tyranitar when you don't need to be just sucks. And the Heatran thing, of course, is huge, so I think it is DD Earthquake. If it is DD Earthquake, then it's probably not staying in. And if it's Bulky Swords and Superpower, which is Bulky Swords Dance is SD, Roost, Bullet Punch, and then filler. You know, Bug Bite, U-Turn, Superpower are the most common ones. And if it's Superpower, well, I guess you don't really want to go one-on-one with a DD Earthquaking Dragonite. I guess it could also be like something weird like Heal Bell, but I think he really needs the Earthquake coverage, given all of the outline factors. So, the thing is that he has to, well, hitting Heatran on the switch kind of sucks. Jirachi being paralyzed is also great for Scizor, since faster Fire Punch Jirachi is one of the biggest thorns in Scizor's side. It's why it fell off from popularity, as a matter of fact, since Jirachi was just everywhere. Anyway, so he goes right to Heatran. Even an unboosted Superpower won't do much. Swords Dance takes, nope, not going to do anything against that switch. So he's gonna, since he doesn't have Rocks up, he's gonna be entangled in this weird little, you know, back and forth, and it doesn't even have leftovers. So he's gonna sack the Kingdra here, and it all depends on his last. So what's it going to be? It's hard to tell with a team like Phil, since he's so good at being creative and throwing in stuff you wouldn't expect. Now there's the Suicune. Now, not letting Abomasnow Leech Seed earlier, huge. Abomasnow, when you're spamming waters, and the other guy brings an Abomasnow, you're like, oh, that is literally the worst thing I would rather face. You would actually rather face Blissey. Or Vaporeon. Well, Vaporeon would be pretty bad too, but at least Vaporeon's pretty uncommon. Abomasnow is actually quite good. Whereas Vaporeon gets dragged down by a lot of the metagame, and Abomasnow has distinct advantages. Like, so he really was going all in on that Drake, though, for a good reason. And then Rain, and you know, Hail's gone, and removing Hail, or more likely Sand, is also great for Suicune because a lot of what pushes Suicune into KO range is being unable to recover its health from with leftovers because of Sand, and that's why you see it getting picked off by Flygon Outrage and Infernape Close Combat and things of that nature, or even just getting hit being unable to switch into things with Stealth Rock up. Makes its amazing bulk seem not so amazing. It's the power of Sand. But Phil's double Rain Dance is paying dividends here, as Suicune can now potentially pose a threat, whether it's offensive or defensive. because even if it's offensive, then Starmie's going to go down. Or Starmie's completely walled by it. It gets a million Calm Minds, and all it's going to do is T-Wave it, and, I mean, it's going to lose. Jirachi is another thing that tends to beat offensive Suicune because of Sand. Because it just flinches it down, and it can take a couple hits because it's bulky. But outside of Sand, it's pretty helpless. I guess the issue might be Hydro Pump if it is offensive. But Dragonite just gets destroyed, and I mean, offensive Heatran blows itself up, and then, well, we don't know what the Scizor set is. Yeah, and Heatran doesn't always necessarily kill Suicune because it's quite bulky. So it would be a mess. But defensive Suicune would be dangerous. Since defensive Suicune doesn't run Ice Beam, it needs that Sleep Talk. It can't afford to be helpless while asleep. It's got to threaten to kill that Skarmory, who's just trying to phase it when it rests, especially since Skarmory runs physical defense these days for Breloom. So, whichever variant it is, it's a major threat. So, we see the Calm Mind. That was pretty obligatory. It's not going to get anywhere without that. And we see the T-Wave. So now Jirachi is faster. And he's already doubled up on Calm Mind, so he's taken a kill at least. So here comes Dragonite, and he sees that Iron Head did very little, so he knows it's a bold Suicune. So that means Crow Suicune, which means, yeah. No Ice Beam, so Dragonite can set up on it. Now Surf's doing a lot, but he's going to need some more boosts if he's going to beat Dragonite. And the thing about bulky Dragonite is just the max HP and leftovers in Roost makes it a million times bulkier than most Dragonite sets, which just kind of come in, slam something, and then tend to die. And so it could very easily have attack investment and get very scary to Suicune as well, especially since Suicune can full para. See, as he can go for more dances, and now Suicune's paralyzing. Or fully paralyzing. So now he's being safe. That was a strange turn to Roost, I think, since he got the free 6%. I think he could have gone for another dance, or hell, even attacked. I think either of those would have been fine. But now with his doubled attack, he's looking at a clean 3-hit KO. And Suicune is probably not strong enough yet to 2-hit KO. Nope, he goes for the Surf. Might have had to go for that Calm Mind there. And now he's just attacking nonstop, looking to get that para, looking to get that crit. I guess another problem is that he's going to have to boost a little more, since if he just decides to attack a million times, he can very easily get pressure stalled, since getting your attack PP halved really sucks. But I mean, he could also have Earthquake after that, but he's not really in a position to be threatened by DD, or to DD. That's why I think that Roost earlier was really kind of a waste. If he DD'd there, or even attacked, if he attacked and then, DD'd again on the Calm Mind, then he was probably a lot safer. I mean, that full para helped him out a lot, but because that was Phil losing his window and trying to keep up in the battle, but Fake's kind of handed that one away. Handed that, one up he had. So now he's gonna Roost, and Suicune, brings him down. Gonna hope for a Calm Mind, but even without it, then he's still looking at a decent position, and he gets a Sleep Talk Surf crit, so he gets some luck back. Now it's looking like Suicune's, nope. Explosion versus Bold Suicune doing nothing, and I might have to retract that statement. He might not be minus attack. Timid Heatran, if I recall correctly, just barely comes up short on most offensive Suicune, especially since they tend to run bulk, since max speed is kind of wasteful these days. But yeah, he might be running Hasty or Naive, which I generally don't see and I don't think is that good, because the boost on Explosion really isn't that big. It's still pretty strong. It's still going to be killing your Gyarados and Dragonite or whatever you're using for it. Now he's got to try to crit flinch pretty much, because he's going to run out of Iron Heads realistically before he flinches that Suicune out. Yeah, but now it's pretty much over. It's a Suicune sweep. So that was an interesting game for sure. I think that crit, that crit was really lucky, but at the same time, Phil wasn't exactly too lucky earlier, and Fakes did give up that, he didn't DD when he needed to, so, even that full para, I think The crit definitely sucked, but I don't know. You know, that kind of theory modding is for the birds. It can be an interesting thought exercise, but it can also feel kind of like, all right, you know, luck happens, and if you really want to break it down all the way, then sure. But Bakes had, you know, a lot of. This Uxie probably also had Thunder Wave, so that's 3 T-Wave users. So, you know, how bad can you feel when, you know, you get one of those things? And he was full paralyzing quite a lot. So, I don't know. I think Phil should have maybe calm-minded a little more, or like at least once more, rather than surfing, since he really needed all those boosts against the bulky knight. But Fakes also should have Dragon Dance. And anyway, so that's my take. Alright, so I'm going to call it there. I think that covers most of it. I hope you guys enjoyed this game and my analysis of it. And I will catch you next time.